Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I am doing the long, and I mean long, overdue review of the Adidas X Crazyfast Plus. I have been trying to get this review done for almost a year now. I originally planned to have it ready by, I believe, the end of July, but unfortunately that's when my injury crisis with my knee started. And then from then on, like because of my own hesitance to train, because I didn't want to risk injuring the knee, and then some other stuff that came up, I just never got to doing the review. So here we are, over a year later from when I actually unboxed the boots the first time. We're already at the end of the replacement life cycle. So for those of you that don't know, the F50 that's current is going to be replaced by a new F50 within the coming month or two, and I'm finally just getting to review the Crazyfast Plus. Even now, like, I'm very much struggling to do this. I don't know how well I sound, but I am pretty sick right now. I'm pretty stuffed up. Nose is runny. So I'm really fighting for my life right now to try and do this review, but honestly, I really need to get it done. I'm not even doing like my normal review setup where like you actually see me holding the boots and talking to you guys, because I feel like crap right now, but I just have to get the review done. It's been way too long. I was able to get some B-roll footage for this actual review. So yeah, that's why I was like, okay, no, let me just get it done, whether I'm seeing my face or not. The focus is on the boots. That's all that matters. So yeah, that's all that rambling out of the way. We're just going to focus on the boots from two aspects, really, the pros and the cons, as I do with my other reviews. And then I'm going to give you guys like a final recommendation on whether or not you should still pick these up in the big 2025. And if you are looking for something like this, but not exactly this, then the boots you can also check out that are currently on the market that would give you a feel or performance similar to this Crazyfast Plus. And so with that all out of the way, let's get started. As usual, we're going to begin with the pros of the football boot. And you're looking at one of them right here. Well, I'm looking at it and I'm feeling it, but yeah, I'm trying to show it to you guys. And that's the weightlessness. This boot is, without a doubt, the lightest boot I have in my collection by far. And it honestly feels like nothing's on my feet when I'm playing with it. That's something that was heavily marketed when the Crazyfast Plus was originally dropped. And it definitely does that, like, to a T. Also, I don't know why, but my camera keeps, like, switching from this, like, icy lighting to more of, like, a warm color. So I might have an issue with that throughout the video. Apologies for that. Just bear with it. But yeah, super lightweight, very like minimalistic. You don't even feel it on your feet. To compare to like some of the other speed boots on the market, like the current F50 or the Mercurial Vapor 16, or even the Vapor 15 when it was still the current model, this thing is at least like 30 grams lighter than any of those boots. And you really do notice it when you have it on feet because it feels like there's absolutely nothing there. And it really helps you to just move and focus on the ball. And it's a really nice sensation that I really enjoy. If you're someone who wants something ultra light, because of the minimalistic construction of this football boot, you're going to get absolutely that with this. So definite pro for me. The other pro would be the touch on the ball. Now, as you guys can see, this football boot is extremely thin. So as a result, you get a very barefoot, pingy touch on the ball. Every time you strike the ball with this football boot, you are feeling everything to the max. All the pain, all the cushion, whatever it is, it's super responsive and super receptive. So for me, I really like that because when I be training things like volleys, for example, I always like to strike a volley with this side of my foot. Depending on how well I lock my ankle or how I follow through on the ball, I'll get more pain or more of like just a firm strike against the ball that doesn't cause pain, but just feels firm. And it's something that it's a lot easier to kind of tell and discern when you're using a football boot like this, which is ultra thin. It also allows me to like, really connect with my dribbling, my shooting, my overall just first touch. It's just so fun and enjoyable to be able to kind of receive all those sensations and really become, this is going to sound insane, but become one with the game, one with the ball. It's just such a surreal and nice feeling. And you have all of that to thank because of this Aeropacity Speedskin Plus. Even though it looks plasticky as hell and super thin, it still feels amazing and is super comfortable on feet. At least compared to like what you would expect from something that looks like this. But you can also see like with how thin it is, like how flimsy it is. The boots don't even have a shape right now because I've had them in a string bag for so long. It's just literally holding flat like that, like pretty easily. That just highlights how thin and how raw the touch you're going to get is from these football boots. And it's definitely one of the most enjoyable parts of wearing this boot. The third pro for me would be the responsiveness. And that comes mainly from the outsole here. So obviously this is the aero plate, but really it's just the Speed Frame 2.0 with the plastic insert that you got on the Speed Portal Plus and also the Speed Portal Point 1, I believe. Before it was replaced by the Crazyfast Plus and Crazyfast Point 1 and all that stuff. So you get a really nice plastic frame and then these plastics inserts over here, which add a lot of snapback and responsiveness and stiffness through the midfoot and the forefoot so that every step you take, you just feel like you're pushing off with maximum effect and maximum rebound. You also get the Sprinter Spike inspired forefoot where you can see it's raised. The boots look horrible like this. I should have put a shoe tree in these or something, but yeah, you guys can see, get that raised forefoot to keep you on your toes, more so like this than like flat, which is very nice, very good for pushing off and being agile. And the traction of the boots is great too. Even though you get more bladed studs, it still digs into the turf a decent amount so that's not hurting your ankles too much, but it also gives you a nice amount of bite, both in the forward and lateral directions. So it's very enjoyable from that regard. And then continuing with the upper, because of how thin it is and how like plasticky it is, it molds to your foot in a weird way that it locks you in, but at the same time, like it doesn't. And I'll get more into that on the cons when we get to the lockdown and the heel. But when it comes to the actual midfoot and forefoot, it locks your foot in really well, especially because you get that standard lacing setup with the single holes and the U-throat construction. It just does a really good job of locking you in. And when combined with this outsole, if you do the runner's loop, which you guys can clearly see I have on right now, one of the best football boots to have on feet. It's just, it feels like it fuses with your foot given how light it is and how responsive it is. It just feels like it's all you and the boots aren't really doing much. So from a pro's perspective, if you want like a true speed boot, just focused on pure speed, agility, and just being there, going as fast as you can, this is the boot for you. It excels in anything related to maximizing your speed. When it comes to the cons of the Crazyfast Plus, there are arguably just as many cons, at least in my experience, as there are pros. And it begins with the lack of protection. As I mentioned during the touch aspect of the football boot, or the touch pro, if that's what you want to call it, the Aeropasti Speedskin Plus upper is very thin. So you guys can see it's literally just kind of like a mesh, and you have an aero cage underneath to kind of give it its support. And as a result, you get something that's extremely thin. This means that every time you strike a ball or you get stepped on or you kick a wall or anything like that, your foot is taking the full brunt of the forces that are being unloaded onto the boot. And as a result, you're getting no foot protection when you're wearing these. I promise you guys, getting stepped on in these is one of the most diabolically painful experiences I've ever had. And for me, it happened with metal studs. So you can imagine I was not in a good way after that. It's so uncomfortable to like really like get hurt when you're wearing these because they're just so thin. They offer you no protection. And I mean, I can understand why it's the compromise that you get for going for the lightest football boot. You got to give up some thickness to the upper, but it's just like, damn, like that bad to where like you have like no protection at all. It's kind of crazy. Kind of sucks, even though like, you know, you're kind of getting what you paid for. You know what you're getting into when you wear the Crazyfast Plus. But for me, it is still a con. The other kind of issue with the lack of protection is the elements. Like if you're playing in rain, you're playing in snow, or you're playing in a cold environment, again, with how thin these are, you can literally see like the holes throughout the upper and the mesh. With how thin they are, rain, cold, snow, all of that can easily get to your foot and make it cold. So when you're playing in like inclement weather, it's just very uncomfortable. It's not the greatest experience. It takes even longer for your feet to warm up, like especially like for shooting drills and stuff. And your feet will get soaked like instantaneously if you even step in a pitch that's raining with these. So yeah, it's not the greatest thing in my opinion. I think they could have added maybe like an all conditions like coating or something like that. So that maybe it would be a bit better in like inclement weather. But I understand again, like this is kind of what you have to be ready for if you want to use a boot that's this thin. The next issue for me would be the lockdown in the heel. Now, this is the one thing that probably stops the boot from being as responsive as it could possibly be, because as you guys can see, the heel is actually well sculpted, but because of the way my ankles are shaped, when I tie the laces tight on these football boots, and it's not just the Crazy Fast, but other football boots, the kind of heel, or not the heel, but like the sides flare out like extremely hard. So for me, like I just get a lot of heel slippage because this part is not wrapping my heel very well. And that's due to the plasticky nature of the football boot. It just kind of flares out and goes wherever. As you can see, it's just very flimsy and it doesn't really wrap your foot like a sock would. Like it wraps your foot like a piece of plastic would, and it's to be expected. So for me, and maybe for some of you other viewers, you might have to use the runner's loop in order to truly get the most benefit out of this. When I would lace these up without the runner's loop, and with grip socks even, like I'd still get some heel slippage because there's just so much dead space on the lateral and medial sides of my ankles that like it just wasn't right. But when I would do the runner's loop, it completely changed everything and made the boot feel so much better. But for people who don't want to do the runner's loop, obviously you shouldn't have to do the runner's loop to enjoy the maximum lockdown of a product that's marketed to be for, maximum speed and performance. Like the lockdown should just be there to help you. You know what I mean? So for me, that's another issue with the football boots. But again, it's something that can be rectified if you use the runner's loop. So again, it's not a big deal for me, but it's still like, it's there as a little con. And then the last con would be the durability. Now, this is something that's a lot more variable, depending on the amount of use. Um, as you guys know, I have a lot of cleats, so like these are a year and a half old or something like that. And from what you guys can see, there really isn't any like damage to the boots. There's no sole separation anywhere. The upper is pretty much intact, even after getting stepped on with metal studs. Like everything is pretty much perfect. It's just dirty. On this boot, you guys can see, like, cause I strike the knuckleball, there's a bit more of like that turf staining there, but yeah, durability wise, it's fantastic. But again, that's because I have a wide variety of football boots and I can kind of rotate. At most, I'll use a boot for a week and then I'll switch into the next boot. And since I'm training a lot less now, I don't even have to use my boots that much. So for me, durability is not a concern. It's more so for the average consumer who's going to buy maybe one or two boots for a season. From people I've spoken to who have had the Crazy Fast Plus, they've told me that the boots lasted either 3 months at the bare minimum to 9 months as like a bare like maximum. And that's for like guys who are training like 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week, playing matches twice a week or something like that. So it's kind of disappointing because obviously like you're buying a pair of boots that's, well, at the time these were $400, which is kind of insane. Like you're going to get a $400 boot that's not going to last you that long. That's pretty disappointing, like I wouldn't be happy if I bought a $400 boot and it broke in 3 months. But you also kind of have to understand that's what you're getting into when you buy a boot that's this thin. Now, obviously it's not anywhere near as bad as like some of the other brands that tried to go for super light boots. Like, for example, at the time of this boot, we had something called the Puma Ultra SL, which was also kind of based off of the Evo Speed SL from even further back in the 2010s. And those boots, like Puma would send you like a disclaimer in the box saying that the boots would last about 10 games. So these boots should not be worn for trainings or anything. They should only be worn for matches exclusively because that's how thin and indurable that they were. So like, you're not getting anything like that. This is obviously a lot more durable and a lot more like structured than what you get on those boots, but it's still like for the price, like 3 months to 9 months is just unacceptable. I have a friend who has a pair of Phantom Visions, which are not like super thin by any means, but they're not thick either. And he's worn them for 5 years straight. And only now is he starting to see sole separation. So it's like, at the very minimum, like you would want your football boots to last like at least a year to two before you replace them, especially if you're like on a budget or you don't have a lot of money to just be throwing at football boots. And to just be paying 400 for a pair of boots that's going to wear down in like 3 to 9 months is just not great. Um, especially in like Canada and like the US where a lot of pitches are made of turf. Turf is very abrasive and especially in the summer, like it really wears down cleats because of the heat that can be generated from just running, kicking and all that stuff. That makes things even worse for a football boot like this. And those are the pitches that are the most common in like Canada and the US, even in like some parts of Europe and stuff like that. So just durability wise, it's not great. It could have been better. But again, as something that I've been saying through the cons, it's kind of what you sign up for when you try to get a boot this thin and this light. But with that, that concludes the cons of this football boot. So what are my overall thoughts on the Crazyfast Plus? Well, essentially, it's a good boot. I think you're going to see in the title of the actual video, it's a Purist boot, if I'm being purely honest. In terms of performance, it ticks pretty much every box. It's extremely lightweight, like literally like feels like nothing in my hands. You get a really thin, barefoot feeling upper with this Aeropasti Speedskin Plus and a super thin aero cage. It's a snug, near glove-like fit, especially towards the forefoot and the midfoot, although that kind of, tapers off towards the heel area, depending on the way your heel is shaped. You get an ultra-responsive outsole in the form of this, what's it called again? The Aeroplate, or if you want to call it the Speed Frame 2.0. Ultra-responsive, very sprinter-inspired, just purely built for speed. And of course, you get a no-nonsense central lacing system, which kind of keeps you locked in and really focused on just like a good fit within the football boots. But as an overall package, that's where it becomes a bit of an issue, like I mentioned in the cons. Protection is non-existent, more or less, because of how the boot is built. No durability, obviously compared to like the boots of today, obviously not compared to like other super light endeavors by other brands. And something I didn't really touch on in the cons was the overall comfort. Now, for me, this boot is comfortable. I don't have any issues with how it feels. But given its plasticky nature in terms of the upper material, like with the mesh and then like this like thin cage, it's not going to feel anywhere near as comfortable as a knit football boot. And that's just a fact. A knit football boot feels like a sock for a reason. It's made of knit. This is not. So there are definitely more comfortable options out there. And it also depends on your foot shape. Like this will accommodate wide people pretty well because I have wide feet. And I haven't had any issues with like pain on the foot or anything on the lateral and medial sides. But like, it's just the plasticky nature takes away from some of the overall comfort that you could be getting from like, let's say something that was knit or something that was like leather or even synthetic leather. And then of course there's the lockdown, as I mentioned, in the heel area. For me personally, it's just not great because this frays out too much. The runner's loop does help a little bit, but it doesn't do like everything. And obviously like you would rather not have to do an entirely new lacing technique just to get the type of fit that you want from your football boots. It's just inconveniencing in my opinion. Not a big inconvenience, but it's definitely something that's there. So that's why I'd say overall, I view this as a Purist football boot and would only really recommend it if you want to try something new or something like super unique or something super specialized. There are some other boots that I can recommend that will give you a similar performance to this, although not entirely, because on the market, there aren't really any boots that are super lightweight or built to be like this ultra speed boot like this X Crazyfast was. But I can give you some things that are kind of similar in terms of their overall build. From Adidas themselves, Adidas offers the F50 Elite and the F50 Elite Mid-Cut. They pretty much have the same upper, although the F50 Mid-Cut is a bit different in the fit, apparently. And obviously you get the sock collar as well. So I think it wraps around your foot a little better because of the sock collar. On my personal F50 Elite, I also get some dead space, but it fits a lot better than what you get with this. Like you don't necessarily need to do the runner's loop in order to enjoy those. But it is something you should maybe consider. But yeah, those are the two main options. I didn't really recommend the F50 Plus or the F50 Elite LL because those are laceless. The two boots I mentioned before are laced. These ones are laced as well. So that'll give you like a similar experience. And on top of that, Fiber Touch Plus, it's not the thinnest material in the world, but it is also a synthetic. You get like a small cage sort of. So it kind of mimics what you would get from this, but with a little bit more protection, and just like a softer feel overall. So something you could consider. And then the other boots I would recommend would be the Mizuno Alpha 1 or 2 Elite or the Made in Japan variations. Now I included both because they're essentially the same boot. It's just the Made in Japan variation is a little more premium in terms of how long it takes to build and like, I think some materials that are used. But it is a lot more expensive. I believe it's like 320 American. And then like the Made in Japan or the Elite variation is closer to like the Nike Elite models, like at the 275s, 250, etc. But with those boots, the Mizuno Alpha, you get that again, like super thin, plasticky kind of upper with an internal cage. And then the main like thing that's really similar to those is the outsole. you get like a plastic frame, but then you get the Carvo insert. It's like a carbon fiber based insert, similar to what was on the Speed Portal, and like I guess kind of imitating what's on this as well. But I think it's a slight bit more responsive just because it's carbon. I can't be exactly sure because I don't have a pair, but I have heard that it's slightly more responsive than what you get on these football boots. And you also get the, laces, of course, super like nice streamlined fit that locks your feet into the football boots. So it's a similar experience, but again, I don't think they're anywhere near as light as these. So I don't think there's any boot that can really offer you the weightlessness experience if you want it. But you don't want to get the Crazyfast. Like, I think you have to just get the Crazyfast Plus if you want to feel that weightlessness, like, to the max. But I mean, other speed boots by today's standards are light anyways. So like, it's not really like the biggest thing that you need to like absolutely try. Like, in my opinion, personally, it is a nice feature to have, but it's also just, whatever. So yeah, that's my review on the Adidas X Crazyfast Plus. Definitely very delayed. Finally glad to get it done and like get it out. But yeah, as a summary, a very good boot, very much like enjoyable as a speed boot, but just not exactly what you need if you want something that's going to serve you all around in terms of comfort, lockdown, and like just giving you a balanced experience. This is very much a purist boot or like a collector's item. And that's what I would recommend if you end up deciding to go for this boot. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to like, drop a comment, telling me what you think about these football boots. If you have them, if you plan on getting them, what you think about them compared to the F50s now, etc., so on and so forth. You know how the vibes are. And also don't forget to subscribe. I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.